I watched a couple of videos this morning and listened to a couple of podcasts around remote viewing. If you don't know what remote viewing is, check out the work of Russell Targ, Ingo Swan, Pat Price, but Russell Targ especially, even checking out the work of Uri Geller. Right. But more Russell Targ. Russell Targ's work with remote viewers in the 1970s. And then, of course, the CIA picked up on that as well. And you started utilizing remote viewers. And the military. And I'd imagine most governments around the world still use remote viewers. And I would also suggest that most people within the what David Icke calls the cult, at the highest levels of the cult, use remote viewers as well. But they know, the people at the top of the echelon, the top of the pyramid, the capstone of the cult, they know where they want the projection as the AI, the interdimensional AI, instructs its possessed sycophants, its puppets, which way it wants to project its path, its direction to remain in control. Even as we go into this phase, we go into this this timeline where, well, I won't even call it a timeline, but we go into this move forward from this moment where there's a change coming, an energetic change and shift coming in. And it's up for debate what that looks like, because it's really about how you choose to respond to the field, because in unified field, because that's all possibility, infinite possibility, all there is, ever has been and ever will be. Right, the dazzling, that's what infinity is. And it responds to your emotional feeling. It responds to your projection, your resonance for you personally. But there is, this is what I want to make the video about. There's a collective agreement in this realm, right? And the collective agreements broadcast into this frequency, into the simulation, if you like, into this unified field, what we accept to be real, what we accept to be truth, what we accept to partake in, what we consent to partake in. This is a classic example, right? This is a 50 New Zealand fiat currency dollar, okay? $50. So there's a collective agreement in this country, on these islands, that this is worth $50, right? Fiat currency. I can get goods and services with this piece of paper, which is worthless. Intrinsically, it's worthless. It's a piece of fucking paper, right? It's no longer even legal tender. It's not even written on it anymore. It used to have legal tender written on this piece of paper, right? Legal tender to the bearer of $50 of what? $50 of silver? $50 of gold? Now it's just a piece of paper. But there's a collective agreement that this is worth something. I can buy goods and services with this. I can go into a gas station today and put $50.95 into Golden Horse, my van, and hand the cashier or the clerk or the receptionist, or what you want to call them, the individual working at that gas station, can hand this to them, petrol station, and they'll accept it for value. It's a collective agreement. This is worth something, but it's worth nothing. It's an intrinsic belief, right? That's how reality works in this realm, in case you didn't realize. It's a collective agreement, and it's broadcast through so many levels. The most important one, of course, is our parents and our peer groups and our environment that we're brought up in. And then it goes through the schooling process, where we're indoctrinated from kindergarten to primary school in our country, to intermediate school, to high school, college, and then university. There's an indoctrination process, in regards to how we perceive this realm reality, right? How we perceive it. So the collective consciousness is pushed and manufactured, and perceptions manufactured, so that we perceive this realm in a certain way, we perceive ourselves going a certain way, and what's happening is consciousness is corralled to perceive the realm in this particular direction and moving in this particular direction, and therefore that's the collective agreement, and by doing that we go towards a certain direction. And the cabal, the cult, I prefer to call it a cult as David Icke does, because it's pretty clear to me it's exactly what it is. The cult looks to manufacture consent and consciousness and perception to go in a certain direction, right? So they can harvest consciousness and keep it and remain in control of it through the phases where it's beginning to lose control. If you look at the yoga cycles within this simulation, look, if we are actually in a simulated reality, if we are in a simulation controlled by a force called Boath, right, which utilizes the denser energies within the simulation produced by people, men and women, and everything within the simulation is a loosh farm to feed itself and its demons, its archontic demons that basically are its henchmen, to feed itself, to feed them energetically. And it has taken over the biology of various forms of other beings within this galaxy, and has utilized those beings, and maybe even ancient beings from this realm who have been here longer, or been here, I wouldn't say evolved, but have been on this planet with us in certain frequency levels that we can't perceive because we can only decode a small fraction of visible light. And that these beings have also been manipulated, or large portions of them, or some small portion of them, have been manipulated and have taken on certain medical procedures, shall we say, or have certain aspects of a cyborg relationship with this interdimensional AI through the use of technology to change its biology, to have coherence energetically in a frequency bandwidth, to be able to be communicated by this interdimensional AI controlling the simulation, and therefore do as it's told, right? So, watching these remote viewers, and I watched 4 of the remote viewers, and they all said very different things. They also had very different experiences, and a die was cast with each and every remote viewing session. And it's funny how I picked up on, when I was watching these remote viewing sessions, I was literally watching a lot of what was being said and going like, I've seen that being said already this year. I've seen that being said this year. I actually did a video 2 years ago about that, and it was taken off YouTube and cancelled because of I was violating the code, the YouTube code, right? And I was like, this is really interesting. It's like, it's basically, in my perception, it's like if you have a revelation of the method in regards to how the powers that be, the cult, want to move forward, but they have various members within that cult who want to do it this way or that way, or this way or that way or that way or this way, who all get to the same destination at the behest of the force controlling them. It's very interesting when you see someone remote viewing, or remote viewing people who all have different strands, and they all see the same end game, but have very different ways to see it moving towards the end game. And that's exactly what I saw this morning. I saw a number of remote viewers and groups of remote viewers who remote viewed certain aspects of where we are moving towards in certain locations around the planet. And it was a collective agreement from all of them in their data collection. And of course they do a double blind data collection. It's very professional. And these people who are doing the remote viewing as a task, I know aren't run-of-the-mill kind of like YouTube clickbaiters. They're quite deep in the scientific method of utilizing this process. And then the question then becomes, are they reading the Akashic record? Are they reading the information stored in the Kordylewski clouds? Are they reading the information stored in the Kordylewski clouds? And by doing that, picking up on that and seeing how, if the collective consciousness is not agreed to another aspect of how our frequency will move forward, will this happen because this is an interference pattern. This is what will happen if we don't change the way that we collectively choose to adhere to this frequency. This is where we're going to head towards, right? If we are all corralled, if we are all manipulated with our perceptions to see our reality moving this way, this is going to be our experience. Or was it, my question, or was it an interference, like something else was coming in, and I can see this being benevolent with some of these aspects that we're bringing into the remote viewing data collections, that these aspects that were coming in, it was almost like it was some benevolent forces coming in to stop this particular trajectory of consciousness moving towards an outcome, would come in and stop it. And in that process, the powers that be, the cult, would jump onto this moment, knowing it was coming because of their own remote viewers, and of course their connection to the hive mind of the AI, and piggyback upon it to do, even though they were going to lose control of that time, of this collective consciousness with this remote viewing data that was being shared, that they would come in and create a massive loosh to harvest out the consciousness and the energy of the consciousness and take it across to another realm, e.g. the 8th sphere, while this interference came in and took a large portion of consciousness and people embodied, men and women embodied, through portals into another level of existence beyond this one. But this one was absolutely, this realm, this planet, this frequency was absolutely annihilated. And maybe after that had happened, after the annihilation, many decades or hundreds of years later, what we perceive as being time in this realm, those people that were taken from and through this portal were brought back into this realm to rebuild in a more harmonious and coherent way with the planetary consciousness and the energies that had shifted and changed, right? And this is all remote viewing data that I watched this morning. And I was like, okay. But my point being is that everything that I saw comes down to this. It's a collective agreement. And there's a reason why there's a massive, massive splay of information presented to us on the internet. Look over here, look at this, look at this, look at that, look at this, look at this, look at that, look at this. You know, some people have got it down to a place where they can see where the projection is for this cult moving forward, right? And they explain to you what they want in regards to their end game. And you see that playing out in real time. And a lot of people are coming into that energy, into that, I'm not going to say timeline, into that moment and going like, yeah, I want to share in this experience of tapping into being in a hive mind, being a cyborg, and potentially living forever in my embodied body, right? The Ray Kurzweils of the world, the tech bros of the world, looking to extend their life, looking to become more embodied with technology, and therefore creating the hive mind, basically becoming the Borg, right? A lot of people want to go down that timeline, and then there's a movement within the cult to actually, as David Icke quite rightly pointed out, there's a movement within the cult to bring that timeline, which might have been 2030, forward a long time till 2026, 2027, and to really give it a go. Throw the kitchen sink in, the bathroom sink, the bathtub, the shower, throw all the appliances into the mix and make it happen with a chaos blitzkrieg from the lower fourth dimension, as these entities that are in the lower fourth dimension begin to get into coherence with forms who have had these medical procedures, who have this tech inside them that is changing their DNA to become in coherence with the lower fourth dimension, so these lower astral entities can come into their forms, possess them, and therefore take over their forms within this chaos realm, and then feed for however long they can, before potentially that light of energy which is coming in. This is also a remote viewing aspect which I heard about, and I've heard various people say the same projected movement forward. This energy from the yuga cycles, from ekpyrosis, the transformation through fire, comes into this realm and transmutes it, and transmutes this energy, and all that's been hidden becomes exposed. And then in that process there's a transmutation, through fire, the energy of fire. And in that transmutation, by 2040, there's a very different world. I mean, as we move towards the ascending Dwapara cycle in the Yuga cycles, which could be part of the simulation once again. But when I saw the couple of these remote viewing videos today, one of them really made me question why YouTube chose to take down my Studio Canal War of the Worlds video. I talked about the nature of these future humans and the documentary and the miniseries that came into our timeline came back from the future into our present, basically killed off 99% of the population of the planet in one single moment through a frequency blast across the entire planet, kill off 99% of the population. A small group survive because they're in Faraday cages all over the world. But this particular miniseries focuses on France and England, and how these future men and women come back to our reality armed with robotic, AI-driven, hive mind, biological cyborg robot dogs with guns and with lethal instruments to hunt and kill the survivors, right? But one of these remote viewers in this remote viewing process, those data that I saw this morning, said that he saw those exact same robotic, biological, AI-driven hive mind guard dogs, he called them, in London in April 2026. So, you know, all of this once again comes down to a collective agreement, in my perception, in regards to how we all choose to perceive our moment moving forward, right? What's our collective agreement? What's our collective agreement? My question. What are we going to create? What are we going to create? Are we going to continue to believe, lie to ourselves that this is worth anything? Because it's a collective agreement that this is worth something? It's a piece of paper. It's monopoly money, pretty much. But we have a collective agreement that it's worth something. What are we going to do? How are we going to change our frequency, our perception? What kind of reality are we going to decode if we choose to live in our heart vortexes en masse and decode our experience from our heart vortex, knowing that we are divine sparks? We are divine sparks. We are all that is, ever has been, and ever will be. That's the opportunity that presents itself in this moment. The energy is here for us to do this. That we perceive ourselves as being a divine spark. Not our bodies, not our jobs, not our genders, not our color of our skin. Nothing. Nothing. Not our race. We're not that. It's an experience. We are divine sparks. We are all that is, ever has been, and ever will be. If we all if you all comprehended that, not understood that, we can stand under our Creator. Happy to do that. Happy to do that. But when are we going to come to a place where we, and are we, most importantly, going to allow our perception to be manipulated? Are we going to decode a dystopic future? Are we going to decode a future where enormous cataclysmic change takes place and there's a massive piggybacking upon that cataclysmic change by the cult to wipe out 99% of the population and then scoop up the remaining population, chip them, and make them into robot slaves for them on some level of existence other than the one that we're in? Who knows? And just so you know, the second part of the what I just said wasn't in any remote viewing data that I heard this morning. I'm not putting it, and I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying, in the end, that's what, if you look at the actual projection of this cult's direction, they want to create cyborg slaves. It's Atlantis all over again, and there's nothing new under the sun, right? As Icke Casey once famously said about the Atlanteans that came to Egypt with their automatons, with their things, he called them. automatons, with these chimeras that the Atlanteans, the Belial group, the more darker path, the darker Atlanteans that survived the cataclysm, who came to Egypt with their slaves that they created, the chimeras, men and women hybrids, cyborgs, you name it, robots. They all came along with them. Are we, the people of this planet, going to be taking down that particular, I'm not going to say timeline once again, I'm going to say that particular narrative all over again, because we didn't take full accountability, full responsibility for our creations, and come together to live, to perceive, most importantly, that we are divine sparks. We are all that is, ever has been, and ever will be. And not helpless and powerless. Thanks for watching. I truly appreciate it. Mate wa. I'll see you again soon.